For centuries, global empires willingly threw their merchant fleets into the teeth of the Indian Ocean. They braved massive swells, violent storms, and scurvy, all to reach one specific destination. This chart reconstructs the global economy from the year 1 AD to 1000 AD. The massive block holding steady right here is the Indian subcontinent. For over a millennium, this single region produced roughly a quarter to a third of total global economic output. This sustained economic dominance grew from a deliberate architecture, the ancient world's most advanced, fully integrated system of manufacturing and trade. The engine powering that system was agrarian. Massive river basins like the Ganges and the Indus provided incredibly fertile, multi-cropping soils. That immense food surplus sustained an enormous labor force. In the pre-mechanized world, if you combined peak agricultural yields with peak population density, the mathematics guaranteed you would be an economic superpower. With the food supply secured, millions of workers specialized in proto-industrial manufacturing. They produced items like Dhaka muslin, a cotton so fine it was called woven air. In the ancient market, these textiles commanded the same global desperation that cutting-edge microchips do today. Their metallurgical engineering was just as advanced. Indian foundries melted iron with carbon inside sealed clay vessels to produce Wootz crucible steel. It was a high-performance alloy that the rest of the world couldn't replicate, eventually becoming famous as Damascus steel. To export these goods, merchants mastered the seasonal monsoon winds, turning the Indian Ocean into a high-speed intercontinental superhighway that linked a highly organized network of coastal ports. The demand was so intense it created a severe trade imbalance. Roman senators actually complained that their empire was draining its silver and gold reserves just to pay for Indian black pepper, silk, and cotton. By controlling the production of the era's most critical luxury goods, India turned the global economy into a one-way street, pulling massive amounts of capital into the subcontinent for over 1,000 years. That entire economic model collapsed in the late 18th century. The Industrial Revolution rewrote the basic rules of how wealth was created. A regional monopoly on human craftsmanship suddenly faced a mathematical impossibility. A British steam-powered loom could weave cotton exponentially faster and cheaper than the most skilled handloom weavers in Bengal. At the exact same time, the British East India Company dismantled India's native manufacturing base. Through taxation, tariffs, and direct control, they restructured a global exporter into a captive consumer market for British factory goods. This was forced deindustrialization. Instead of selling high-value finished textiles or steel, the subcontinent was reduced to exporting raw commodities like indigo, unspun cotton, and grain. The global economy simply stopped rewarding massive agrarian labor. It started rewarding mechanized speed, and India found itself on the wrong side of the equation. By the time India achieved independence in 1947, its share of global GDP had plummeted to roughly 4%. The new nation inherited a severe systemic deficit. The ports and rails were built for colonial extraction, the capital reserves were depleted, and the massive workforce was entirely unaligned with mid-20th century industrial demands. Raising a new flag was a political victory, but the immediate economic reality was navigating a massive machine that had been deliberately broken for over a century. Today, the definition of value has shifted once again. The global market no longer pays a premium for traditional agriculture, black pepper, or basic woven cotton. The new currencies of global wealth are intellectual property, advanced semiconductor fabrication, and the critical mineral supply chains that power green energy. If you map out these modern monopolies, you see massive concentrations of capital flowing directly into Silicon Valley for tech IP, Taiwan for advanced microchips, and Shenzhen for mass manufacturing. India is aggressively navigating this transition, but it produces stark contradictions. It is a global powerhouse in IT services and software development, yet it still battles structural poverty and deep infrastructure gaps. To capture these new value systems, the country is pushing massive investments into its space program at ISRO, transitioning to green energy networks, and rapidly expanding its digital infrastructure. India's ancient wealth was the mathematical result of producing exactly what the world desperately wanted. To reclaim its economic gravity, it cannot look backward. It has to invent the technologies the global economy will depend on tomorrow.